In our previous episode, Lin finally made it out of the corpse realm. First, he reunited with his sister, then went to see his teacher. White Divine answered his question and said, unless someone leaves behind a soul imprint, there's no chance of revival after death, and further explained that only if the soul can return to that imprint might resurrection be possible. He then followed up by saying, however, for divine-level professionals, once they die, there's no coming back. Lin was a bit surprised, and he didn't quite understand why such powerful figures couldn't be revived. Yan smiled and remarked that one day, Lin would come to understand. Although he's not sure what our boy had witnessed inside the corpse realm, he asserted that some things were still too far off for him to worry about. White Divine agreed with that sentiment, saying Lin had gotten lucky this time, and better not push his luck in the future. He then mentioned that the royal family would probably show up in a few days to apologize, and that they were sure to bring gifts. Rubbing his fingers together with a grin, he declared he'd help our boy wring a good sum out of them. Meng Anwen calmly tells Lin to take a few days off, stating that when it comes to squeezing people dry, his teacher will always have him covered. Our boy didn't really know how to respond, so he simply nodded. After leaving the courtyard, he returned to the Xiajing Academy. Walking the streets, the thought that the fallen heroes couldn't be brought back weighed on him. He was deep in thought when someone suddenly tapped him on the back. Turning around with a smile, he saw Yi Yi. Without hesitation, she clung to his arm, grinning as she tells him that she'd just completed her grandfather's mission and rushed over to see him first thing. Turns out her grandfather had provided her with a trove of resources and sent her off to level up. Over time, she not only reached level 40, but also completed her second-class transfer, also successfully underwent her profession evolution. Tugging at Lin, she wanted him to follow her to a quiet spot, saying it had been too long and she wanted to hear all about what he'd been through. Lin smiled, saying he had plenty to share too. The two walked hand in hand to the riverside. It had been months since they last saw each other. Sitting together beneath the warm sun, they exchanged stories. Yi Yi listened intently. At times her expression turned worried when Lin recalled his close calls, meanwhile laughed aloud at the more amusing parts. The sunlight lingered as they sat close, quietly enjoying the moment. 2 days later, the pair arrived at the dungeon hall together. She remarked that it had been ages since he carried her in dungeon runs and she'd really missed it. However, the moment our boy appeared, the entire place fell silent. Everyone recognized him, and many admired him. Some girls were envious of Yi Yi, while others already speculated which dungeon Lin would steamroll next. She leaned close and praised how amazing he had become, pointing out how everyone looked at him differently now. But Lin remained modest, saying that compared to the pioneers of the human race, he still had a long way to go. Yi Yi, however, firmly believed that Lin would one day surpass even those legendary professionals. Raising her little fist with conviction, she declared that he would eventually defeat the dragons and wipe out the abyssal demons for good. Lin chuckled softly, then turned to pick a suitable dungeon for leveling. Yi Yi had her eye on one called Beast God Plateau. She remarked that it was great for experience and also ideal for those between levels 40 and 50. Aside from the Tyrant Desert, she pointed out, Beast God Plateau was one of the few large-scale raids that contained high rewards available in the dungeon hall. Although it typically required a full raid team of dozens, she had no doubt our boy could handle it alone. Lin nodded in agreement, and the two made their way to the dungeon's entrance to check the info. Beast God Plateau was a level 45 dungeon, with a cap of 50 people. There were 3 current records set by Creators Academy, Genesis Academy, and the Flame Emperor Academy, with the fastest completion time sitting around 6.5 hours. The moment people saw Lin choosing the Beast God Plateau, many were stunned, and some began thinking he was now eyeing records for large-scale raids. A few girls looked at Yi Yi with envy, saying she was so lucky to have Divine General Lin taking her into a dungeon one-on-one. Some even recalled how Lin had once solo-cleared Tyrant Desert, and figured Beast God Plateau wouldn't be a challenge for him either. Amid all the astonished stares, the two disappeared at the entrance. Almost at the exact same time, another massive raid team appeared, and they were none other than the Flame Emperor Academy's squad. Someone suddenly remembered saying it had just been 3 years since the last appearance of the Beast God. He vividly recalled the 3 Academy squads once fighting over it, only for Creator Academy to snag it in the end. And speaking of the devil, the Creator Academy also arrived at the hall as well. and the crowd soon realized another clash over the beast god was about to begin. Anticipation filled the air as each squad vanished into the entrance one after another. While most people had full faith in Lin, a few still hesitated, because after all, this time, he'd be up against the very best of the top 3 academies. As the scene shifts, the pair is already deep inside the dungeon. A soft breeze swept over the grassy fields, and Yi Yi smiled brightly and remarked that after all her recent grinding, it felt amazing to finally relax again. Our boy tells her it was time to begin, and she nods seriously, then casually pulls a picnic cloth and a mountain of snacks out of her storage space, remarking that she was fully prepared too. Without wasting a moment, Lin summoned his scythe and declared, "Come forth, my soldiers." Yi Yi's eyes widened in shock seeing so many skellies in front of her. She counted, and figured it was much more than the last time they met. But it didn't take long for her to accept it. After all, her man was super strong, and she figured she might not even need to lift a finger. The little skellies surged forward as the dungeon's layout quickly took shape in Lin's mind. The first monster appeared, but was effortlessly taken down. The system notified defeated a level 46 plateau direwolf, gaining 920,000 experience and 3 high-grade wolf pelts. Almost simultaneously, the skelly took down a plateau antelope. The system kept chiming with rewards, and Yi Yi was left speechless. Just as she was about to share her snacks with Lin, he suddenly summoned his wings and swooped her up into his arms. Turns out, he had already unlocked the next area. The next thing she knew, they were soaring through the air. Startled at first, she quickly realized just how much stronger Lin had become during their time apart. With a grin she couldn't hide, she leaned her head gently against his shoulder. As they flew, Yi Yi began explaining the dungeon's layout. Apparently, the Beast God Plateau was divided into 4 separate areas, each more dangerous than the last. She pointed out that the majority of rewards were concentrated in the 4th and final plateau, making it the most important part of the dungeon. With Yi Yi guiding the way, the two quickly reached the 2nd plateau. In the distance, a feral roar echoed. Lin descended slowly, sensing that they had just encountered the area boss. The boss guarding the 2nd plateau turned out to be a plateau giant tiger. It looked menacing enough, but its actual stats were closer to a kitty cat. Lin didn't waste time, and he simply had his skellies charge straight in. Within moments, the system notified the defeated plateau giant tiger, earning him 1.41 million experience, and dropping the Tiger Fang sword, a platinum-grade weapon that boosted swordsman profession skills by 50%. Yi Yi was stunned, and she couldn't believe the skeletons had become so powerful, even strong enough to instantly take out an elite boss in a large-scale dungeon. Lin glanced over and told her they needed to move fast and head straight for the final plateau. Still dazed, she nodded and followed as they picked up the pace. While running, Yi Yi explained why this dungeon was called the Beast God Plateau. Hidden deep within was the true body of the Beast God, and further reveals legends say it used to be a divine being, whose physical form reappeared only once every 3 years. She revealed that depending on how quickly the Beast God was taken down, the rewards would differ. Last time, Creator Academy Squad had taken 40 minutes to kill it, and earned a Beast God bone, which was later crafted into a legendary boss-tier accessory. That was enough to grab our boy's attention, and he figured if the loot scaled with clear time, then he knew exactly what he had to do. Soon, they arrived at a long bridge. On the far side lay a massive python, while the bridge itself was crawling with all kinds of smaller snakes. Yi Yi was horrified at the scene, but our boy simply did what a gentleman would do. Gently pulled her into his arms and quickly flew across with his skellies flanking them. As they crossed, the ranged skellies cleared the entire bridge, and the system notification went wild. Within seconds, they landed safely on the other side. Meanwhile, on the other side, the scene shifted to the Genesis Academy. They had just reached the 2nd plateau. Their captain announced that they had to move quickly, adding that they couldn't let the other 2 squads beat them to it. He remarked bitterly that 3 years ago, the Creators Academy had been just 1 step faster, and this time, they were determined to settle the score. Morale surged, and without hesitation, they charged forward, quickly spreading into formation as they surrounded the giant tiger. Meanwhile, several figures watched the action unfold remotely, and they turned out to be the heads of all 3 academies. Mo Xinghe smiled as he turned to the head of Creator Academy, remarking that they had taken the win last time, but this round should belong to them. Old Ning was also present, and he began checking out different feeds, eventually stopping at Lin. The image clearly showed Lin holding his granddaughter in his arms. Old Ning's eyes lit up with fury, and he shouted at the screen, not even caring if he could hear him or not, but still demanded Lin let go of her immediately. Meanwhile, everyone else was surprised to see Lin entering Beast God Plateau too, and what shocked them even more was that his progress already surpassed all three raid teams. All three acknowledged his strength and agreed that Lin might be the one to claim the prize this time. The only question was how fast he could beat the Beast God. Mo Xinghe brought up the current fastest record, which was 37 minutes, but then confidently asserted that Lin was sure to break it today. Back in the dungeon, the pair had already stepped onto the fourth and final plateau. Yi Yi explained that this area was known as the Boss Plateau, because even the weakest monsters here were elite boss level. Crossing the final bridge, the Skellies marched right behind. Soon enough, they ran into several familiar elite bosses from earlier plateaus. Needless to say, the trusty Skellies quickly jumped them, and they were quickly dealt with. However, more appeared in the distance, and Lin quickly realized that this zone was packed with recycled elite bosses from the earlier areas. Seeing that there was still no real challenge, Lin decided to stick to his old strat of pulling a horde, and then nuke them. With a single command, the Skellies scattered across the map, each heading off to gather enemies. Back outside, none of them were quite sure what Lin was planning. They commented that the fourth plateau had to be approached cautiously, saying even their own squad needed 2 full hours to get through it. Curious, they turned to Old Ning, asking what he thought Lin's clear time would be. Old Ning thought for a moment, then calmly stated that if Lin was serious, 10 minutes would be more than enough. The other two were stunned, blurting out that it couldn't be possible. Old Ning just smiled and told them to keep watching. Back in the field, the Skellies had finished luring over all the monsters. From a high cliff, Lin stood at the edge, flanked by his ranged Skellies. As soon as the first wave of enemies stepped into range, the skeletal mages and archers raised their weapons in unison. Then, in perfect coordination, they attacked. Arrows rained down like a storm, elemental explosions burst in every direction, and within just seconds, several boss monsters were blown to pieces. Smiling, Lin calmly raised his hand and remarked that it was time for a good old-fashioned corpse explosion.